Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, The Church of Failure, and with me, as always, is my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney. But tonight we have a very special guest in studio on stream with us, I should say, not in studio. Yeah, the virtual studio that is OBS. Mr. Don Chin, writer and creator or co-creator. I'm not really sure on that. The Wikipedia page did not.
I would say co-creator. I was the writer, and it was my brainchild, but it wouldn't have hit the printed page without the artistic renderings of Parsonovich.
Okay, all right. So, writer and co-creator of the Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, and longtime viewers of the show will know that this is one of our favorite series. I introduced Ayrton to it on a lark when I was explaining to him that comic books weren't all bad. We started this show, and the current environment of the big two had worn a lot of people down. So I was trying to cheer him up by letting him know that there was more out there. And your book was one of the first ones that popped to mind.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Church. I'm honored when I saw you guys on Twitter that you're talking about it. I always want to reach out to people that like the book and just kind of find out what they liked. And then I was surprised to see you do a full YouTube episode going through the issues. And I was going, I don't think anyone has ever kind of done that type of coverage on it. And I was just really flattered. So thank you.
Oh, well, we read it and we absolutely loved it. I believe Ayrton liked it even more than I expected. He was taken aback with it.
Oh yeah, it's everything I love in a visual entertainment media. Like, my favorite movies are the cheesy B movies from like the 60s and 70s, like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. So it's like the more ridiculous and zany stuff like that is. I just love it. I have no idea why, but I fell in love with it immediately from like the first pages.
Well, that's cool, man. I like those zany movies too, and there's a lot of like Airplane. With the Robert Hayes and Top Secret, and the Zucker brothers were pretty funny. I remember seeing Airplane and just thinking, this is my bag, and I really like their, pretty much a joke a minute type of. I don't know, just the way that they did that movie. I tried to make the comic book that way, the first few issues of the Hamsters.
Right. Well, that actually segues into my first question for you. With comic book movies being such a big thing now, when can we expect a live action movie? Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters.
Believe me, I've been knocking on some doors for a while, and I have a feeling that once Dynamite revamps it and kind of gets maybe the back issues out again in a reprinted form, it'll maybe it will get some bites. And if you look on Twitter, and I think, what's his name? David Bowie's son, Duncan. He directed Moon with Sam Rockwell, a really good movie.
Okay.
Duncan Jones. Duncan Jones is he's a pretty well-known director. I think he directed the Warcraft live action movie that came out a couple of years ago. But he tweeted about the Hamsters and said, now that the Turtles have been rebooted, when can we expect the Hamsters? And I said, I would love for him to direct it, but he never got back to me. But there's somebody out there I think that would do a really good job, and maybe kind of put that Deadpool type of tongue-in-cheek spin on it,
right.
and not make it the Turtles have had their 80s kind of run with movies, and then the new revamped one with Megan Fox. And if someone was going to do the Hamsters, I would want them to really just kind of do a 180 on those and kind of put funny animals kind of in the same way that you kind of saw Deadpool, but maybe not quite as extreme as far as the innuendo and stuff.
Right.
Well,
My next question would be: can you, if this happens, could you get us in as extras or something?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some janitorial staff things that need to be done.
Perfect. I can use a mop.
That's right. Yeah,
I don't know, man. I would I'll see what kind of strings I can pull.
Awesome.
Well, one thing I did want to bring up is every time I look up the Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, and this is usually a direct quote from you or is attributed to you. I'm not sure if you've ever actually said this yourself, but the Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters is billed as a parody of a parody. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created because of the accident that created Deadpool. Is the backstory there? So that's where that comes from. They're a parody of the Turtles era, which the Turtles were kind of a parody homage to Daredevil, correct?
Right, Daredevil and Ronin by Frank Miller.
Okay. All right. So you have credits that stretch far beyond this. This is one of the only works that we've seen of yours so far. What other comics were you involved in?
Well, I did work for Cracked magazine before the Hamsters, and that was in the late 70s, early 80s. And Cracked was kind of like the ugly sister of Mad magazine. And but there were a lot of good artists that came out of Cracked, like John Severin usually would do the cover for Cracked and the main parody movie stories in that. So Cracked was like a newsstand, distributed nationally magazine, and like it was similar to Mad. So that was my first published credit that I got paid for, was doing like one-page humorous stories for that. And then later on, after the Hamsters, I wrote the movie adaptation for Stargate, the movie with Kurt Russell and James Spader. My publishing company, Entity Comics, in the 80s actually acquired the rights to print that licensed adaptation of Stargate. And then I've done a lot of parodies, like the Unfunny X-Cons, which is a X-Men parody, which maybe someday you guys should check out. X-Farce, which is, speaking of Deadpool, Rob Liefeld, he created X-Force in the 90s. And so I did one called X-Farce with Bill Mouse, and that did really well. I think we sold like 60 or 70,000 copies of X-Farce. And it had, instead of Deadpool, there was Cesspool. And instead of Domino, it was Domino's. She was like a pizza delivery girl. That was very
fantastic,
packed and so forth. So X-Farce was another parody with Eclipse. A serious book I did was called Enchanter, which was more of an elf, kind of a dark elf fantasy saga that we intended to be 8 issues, but it only saw 3 issues with Eclipse. And then about 7 or 8 years later, after it ended, I tried to do a relaunch of it under my own other company called Express Press. But interestingly, that guy that drew Enchanter is Mike Drignenberg, who is the inker on Clint, which is what we're going to be talking about, I think, tonight. And
indeed,
Mike, after he did Enchanter, got signed by DC Comics. So he's one of the co-creators of Sandman with Neil Gaiman and Sam Keith. So if you look at the early issues of Sandman that Vertigo published, Mike basically got his job co-creating Sandman because of his work on Enchanter.
That's actually very interesting, and I had no idea about any of that. I've read a lot of the early Vertigo stuff. The early Sandman and the early Hellblazer was some of my favorite books from that era. I see Paint Monk in the chat suggesting ARBBH versus TMNT. I absolutely co-sign that 100%. But
Thank you. You never know. So yeah, and Ken Meyer, who's the artist on Clint, he is strangely enough, Ken and Mike lived in Salt Lake City at the same time, and we did a collaboration on this Clint book. We kind of co-wrote it together, me and Ken, and then Ken did the pencil, and then Mike inked it. And personally, I think Mike's inks over Ken's work is just really, really 2-issue miniseries. It's probably one of my favorite drawn hamster books.
Yeah, I've always liked the fact that, you know, a comic book, there are some instances where one creator, we actually had one on a few weeks ago by the name of Damascus, and one creator can write, draw, ink, and color a book. It can be done. But the smorgasbord, if you will, of talent that has to come together for a great book to be done is always amazing to me, just for the simple fact that, you know, all of these people are sitting there and they're working together towards a common goal, and I've always just found that fascinating that it can actually be done.
It is cool. It's like, you know, either the chemistry's there or it's not. And you can see that in a lot of the classic runs, you know, Marvel and DC books, and obviously a lot of independent books have that. And, you know, I admit in some of the hamster books, you know, they weren't as funny as maybe the first one or whatnot. But there are a few that I really enjoyed working with. And this one I'd have to say was one of the funnest projects, just because I think we all gelled really well. And I don't want to leave out Kurt Hathaway either, who was a tremendous letterer, and he definitely had a lot to add to the whole packaging, and you know, his professional lettering style is great. And you know, there's even a part in the book where I think everything goes dark and Hathaway has complete control over the pages, and it was a lot of fun.
Right, and go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask real quick, going back to the original run, kind of those mock conversations between like you and Parsanovich, and when you guys brought in like the new letterer because you couldn't read his handwriting, was that written like as a joke, or did those come from like actual conversations you guys had while writing and creating these stories? I've been curious about that.
You know, Parsanovich has never been known for his penmanship, and you know, even after high school, it didn't really get much better. So I just thought, for everybody's sanity, we needed to just kind of make a change, and that to me was a funny way to do it. And he wasn't offended, but you know, there were just times when he would seem like he'd run out of room in a panel, and it'd be like 70% caption and about 30% art, and I just going, we have to kind of make this a little more balanced. So,
well, the way you did it was fantastic. I loved it.
It was very spot on. One last big thing, and I guess we'll jump in the book, and then if we have some more time for some questions afterwards or during, then we'll do those. If anybody has any questions in the chat, feel free to throw them out there. Nothing inappropriate, please. You know, I normally am all go for, but you know, just out of respect for our guest, let's try and keep it at least somewhat civil.
You know, we're talking to you, Brian Pendleton.
I assume you know who that is, so. But But
He's using
no,
all the not emojis.
have you paid any attention to the what's being called the Comicsgate movement? It has a very big presence on Twitter, but usually it's independent creators using the crowdfunding platforms to create comic books without the help of a major publisher.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I have, I haven't actually funded a book. I mean, I've donated to some Comicsgate projects, and one of them, is Trump's Space Force.
Oh
And
yes,
I got a
we've
copy of that signed in the big print by Dave Dorman, which is beautiful, and you know, signed by the two creators on that. So I am familiar with that, and I know Ethan Skyver. He kind of did. He does a lot of Comicsgate type things, but we haven't really collaborated on anything new. Although he did some like guest covers back in the '90s for me.
Oh, so you have done work with Van Sciver before?
Yeah, he did a cover to a parody book that we did called The Skunk.
Okay.
Parody did this book in the '90s, and if you look at, you might zero or something. Oh, I can if you go online and you look up The Skunk number 1 or 0. There's a variant cover that Ethan did that's really cool, and so
Okay.
I knew him because he was hanging out with Trent Kanuga and another guy named Matt Martin back in the '90s, and I could tell back then Ethan was really talented. But I published a lot of young guys before they kind of made it big with my
Right.
comics comic book company, and he was one of those guys that went on to to bigger things.
Well, as it stands, I think Cyberfrog the book, and two variant Vampirella covers with Cyberfrog on them stand at just under $1 million over the last year and a half. So there's definitely some money to be made. The reason I ask is, have you considered maybe creating a project under the under that? Not necessarily even the Comicsgate hashtag, but just under that marketing model.
It's tempting. I mean, I don't have the rights to the hamsters anymore because I don't know if I've told you this, but Dynamite Comics, who relaunched them in like 2007,
Right.
he reached out to me, and Nick Barucci, who's the publisher for that company, I guess he's been a Hamsters fan for a long time, but he pursued me out of kind of nowhere about 5 or 6 years ago, and actually longer than that, since it was 2007. Yeah, about a decade ago. He asked me what I was doing with the hamsters, and I said I don't really have any plans at the moment because I'm busy doing my real estate thing. And so he says, well, what do you think about relaunching them? And so he did the first color hamster books. I mean, he did 4 of them, and they were really nicely produced with Tom Nguyen and Keith Champagne writing it, and Moose Bauman doing the colors. And I was really happy with it, but I think at that time sales just weren't enough to keep it going. But I've spoken to him recently, and I think his plans are to eventually redo something again. I don't know if that means reprinting the old stuff and putting them in graphic novel form or doing something new. But as far as Comicsgate or crowdfunding, that is tempting. I just don't know enough about it to really be dangerous. But I guess people are making a living. I mean, I gave to Ethan's project as well, but I haven't seen the book yet. He's kind of running late on it.
Well, that definitely happens, but it is completed. That has been verified that Cyberfrog is completed. The first couple of covers are being bound, and from what I understand, it should be out by Christmas. So
yeah, I get his update emails, and he's like sending us screenshots of the pages, and amazing stuff. And I think he told me it's going to have a chromium cover.
It is. It is.
A chromium cover.
Yeah, if you got one of the first 2 campaigns, you got the chromium cover either of Cyberfrog or Salamandroid. One thing that I was was going to mention is even if you don't have the rights to the Hamsters, that's not been a problem for Comicsgaters because Doug TeNapel jumped into Comicsgate for a brief amount of time and created a character that was. It was not Earthworm Jim, but it was Bigfoot Bill. So
I love Doug. Doug is another guy I published before he broke into comics. He was working down, I think, in Southern California, and I think Ken Meyer, who drew the Hamsters, actually met Doug maybe through an animation company that Doug was at, and Doug says, "I want to do a spoof of Jurassic Park," and we did one called Jurassic Lark, which he totally. Drew and it's out there too. It's a parody press book, but I've met Doug. He's a really good guy. I think he's a Christian guy, and I respect that a lot. And his wife is sweet, and he's obviously so talented. All this prolific work.
He recently reacquired a limited license for Earthworm Jim to do, I think, 9 graphic novels, and the first one, obviously, I backed it as soon as I heard about it. But the first one is Earthworm Jim. It's the first time we're ever getting the origin story of Earthworm Jim. $750,000.
Wow, that's amazing. You could buy a mansion. That's amazing.
You got to fulfill the project first. But
yeah.
Then if you can buy a mansion with what's left over, by all means, do it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. More power to him, because that's the challenge of, I think, being a self-publisher and not having the guarantee that Diamond Comics is going to pick up your book. Because that's the thing, is if you can't get distribution, before the crowdfunding thing happened, it was like, why even do it? Because you're only going to sell maybe to your friends and maybe online if you get lucky. But the heyday, I think, of being distributed and having big numbers is probably over right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. But I can say with the utmost confidence that if you ever did create a crowdfunded comic, if you went through Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever you wanted to do, you definitely have 2 backers off rip.
Yeah, we would definitely be probably the first 2 backers.
That's so sweet. I'll give you guys a shout out in the book somewhere.
But yeah, it's definitely something to consider because as the audience will see as we go ahead and get into this here, I'll go ahead and get it pulled up with Clint the Hamster Triumphant. Chronologically, where did this project fall in the Hamster storyline? Is this basically before the Dynamite reboot?
Oh yeah, definitely. Clint is, gosh, I can't really remember in the chronological sense where it fell in the Eclipse run, but we just thought Clint was the breakout star from the series. He had the most fan mail, and so I thought, well, Dark Knight just came out not that long ago, and we just thought let's try a mini series, and Ken and Mike were on board, and it's just kind of a story onto its own. I can't really say for sure where it fell. It's more of just a solo adventure, kind of like like that Wolverine movie that Hugh Jackman did.
That we don't speak of.
Yeah, the one we don't talk about.
Is that because you don't like it, or?
If we're talking about the one with the Silver Samurai, then yes.
I'm thinking of the one. I'm thinking of Logan.
Okay, that's the one that's loose.
Logan was fantastic.
Right,
Logan
the intro.
Good, the one with. Yeah. Go ahead. Are you guys? Isn't that the one with the original Deadpool that you guys are talking about too, or did he make another?
No, that's X-Men 2 with the sewed up mouth Deadpool.
You're right. Okay.
The one that in Deadpool 2 he used Cable's time turner to go back and basically kill that Deadpool.
Right. That was hilarious. Okay, so I might have not seen that second Wolverine with the Silver Samurai, and I guess I'm not missing anything. So thank you.
Yeah,
You
you're
saved
definitely not.
my life.
But yeah, I've got the issue up on screen here. Like I said, we're not gonna read through it on stream, but there are definitely probably at least one every couple of pages of just amazing things. And I will say that you gave us our blessing to go through this. So if Dynamite strikes us down for this, I'm gonna tell him to talk to you.
All right, Clint. Nick's Italian. I think he's got some, some mafia buddies. So I'll try to tell him to not come knocking at your door.
Yeah, not break my digital legs.
Right.
So the first thing you mentioned, The Dark Knight Returns. Obviously, this cover is an homage. It's one of the most homaged covers of all time. Is the Dark Knight Returns cover, where the silhouette of Batman is jumping through and the lightning striking behind him, and it's just a very just identifying cover. It's so timeless as a cover that you can recognize it pretty much anywhere you go. Obviously, in this one, Clint is being struck by the lightning, which is par for the course. But you can definitely get that Dark Knight Return. Like as soon as I saw this, I was like, "Oh, the Dark Knight Returns! I got it."
Yeah. And then it's convenient that Ken's initials are KM, and it looks very similar to the way Frank Miller would sign his name. So I'm recalling that, and that was a fun cover to duplicate. And back in the day, we didn't really have a lot of computers to lay out things. So I think he had to hand cut like the color separations where that lightning is. It almost looks like it was kind of done with like an X-Acto knife and some ruby lith stuff, which is like this red stuff that you used to have to cut back in the 70s, 80s.
I'm very familiar with ruby lith. They also gave you the sheets of halftones that you would have to cut out to use for your fades.
Yeah, that was like the sticky Zipatone stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with that. That stuff phased out about 2 years after I got out of graphic design class. So the kids that came in after me were spoiled with just computer plugins and all this good stuff, Adobe Illustrator and Freehand and CorelDRAW and all these magical programs, and I'm sitting there, cuts all over my hands, like, you don't know what it was like.
Very true.
You had to walk uphill both ways to go to school.
Yeah. Hey, just because I'm old.
Hey, how old are you, Church?
I am 32 in a week.
You're not old, man. You should be like my son.
Hey, man, I got 3 kids. I'm old enough.
They'll age you, that's for sure.
I got enough gray hair to last me for a lifetime. But no, like I said, the cover is very well done. I mean, you instantly get the homage, and that's literally the first of a lot of just homages and nods and even blatant swipes, as we'll see.
Yeah. I have no shame.
Yeah, and I love that all of the nods and homages are just so blatant and in your face. Like, you don't try and make them Easter eggs. You're just kind of like, just throw it right at the reader. I enjoyed that a lot.
Thank you, Ayrton.
So we open up and we see Clint, and he's being bothered by this majestic endangered bird that's been blessed with a sacred Buddha charm, and he blows it away with his trusty magnum. So you get the image of the just the Buddha charm flying away from the feathers exploding, and one last musical note emanating from the destroyed bird.
I know it's not PETA approved. I'm sorry.
Well, I only approve things that aren't PETA approved, so we're good there.
Yeah.
I love animals, but this is just it's not for real, folks.
That's right. It's just drawings on the page.
Yes, there's not
No.
an actual 3-foot tall hamster with a gun shooting endangered birds out there.
Well, if this book was published today, and I think we'll say this a lot during this episode, but if this book was published today, you would have to put a little disclaimer at the bottom: no birds were harmed during the drawing of this comic book.
You're probably right.
So we open up. Clint is challenging Master Locke and expressing that he is ready to leave the temple or ascend, as it will. And can I just say the brilliance of naming the Tibetan monk Master Locke?
I don't know if it's brilliance or just laziness. My folks owned a restaurant next to a hardware store, so I think that's kind of what happened.
Oh, okay. Hey, fair enough,
Well,
but
I mean, we can compromise and say brilliantly lazy.
Okay. Thank you.
didn't Bill Gates say that he would hire the guy that worked smarter, not harder, every time?
Did he?
He did.
Okay.
He did. He appreciated people that worked smarter and not harder. So, I think we do the same thing here on the Gospel of Comics.
Okay. Well, thank you.
But we open up with Clint challenging Master Locke. He gives us a brief reminder as to his brothers, Chuck, Bruce, and Jackie. So let me make sure I've got this straight. Chuck is the one with the spot over his right eye, and Jackie is the one with the spot over his left eye, and Bruce has no spots.
That's correct. Very good.
Okay.
But sometimes the artists might have not gotten that right, so
Yeah,
definitely they have not.
we definitely noticed that.
But
and, anyways, I wasn't gonna burst their bubble. It wasn't like a huge, big thing that it had to be that way. So, anyways, thanks for noticing though and asking.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you remember, but a few months ago, I actually got a sketch card from Peter Samedi of Clint during his run of doing the first set of sketch cards.
That was really cool. And then you had it transferred onto like a coffee mug or
yes. It's a Yeti thermos that I picked up.
Okay.
I figured I should give Ayrton something for showing up for the show on his rotary phone every week. So,
how many bucks did that sketch set you back?
what now?
How many bucks did that sketch set you back?
Well, because of my job, not a lot, but
Okay.
yeah, I actually work with a laser engraver at my job, so that's one of the things that we can do is put the black image on the silver mug.
Pretty sweet. Nice.
But
Yeah, I'm excited to finally get it.
Did you actually buy the original art from him?
yes, I did.
Oh,
It was
nice.
it was a sketch card thing that he did. He was doing $10 sketch cards, and it's a trading card size piece of a paperboard with a back printed on it where he can title it and sign it and all that good stuff. But yeah, he does a 10-minute sketch or a 5-minute sketch or whatever with a Sharpie, a pencil, and an ink pen, and then he just sends it to you in a top loader.
Now, did you request it or did he post that and then you said, I want that and I want to buy it?
No, he put it up there, and I originally just sent him $10 and didn't even give him a character. And he messaged me and he says, "So what do you want on your sketch card?" And I was like, "Can you do Clint from the Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters?" And the first thing I expected was him to go, "The what?" And he was like, "Absolutely."
That's awesome.
So,
That's great. Thank you.
hey man, thank you. without you putting this guy out here, I would never. I honestly think the Hamsters are more entertaining than the Turtles were at this era. Like, I know they got the cult following, but I'm going to go out on a limb here, and not to take any credit away from Laird and Eastman, but if they wouldn't have gotten that toy deal and that TV show, there would be no Ninja Turtles today. I am 100% in that camp that the original 5 issues of the Turtles would have gone no further.
Yeah.
They got very lucky with a toy deal and a TV show that took off in an amazing way.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that it did, because it created a childhood for people like me. I'm very glad that I had the Turtles growing up, but I kind of wish I would have had the Hamsters.
Thanks, man. I'll have to send you a picture. I actually, there was a licensing company that wanted to do some stuff with hamsters and like some children's linens. And so I've got this sleeping bag design that never saw the light of day, but it's like one huge life-size prototype of a sleeping bag that's hanging in my garage of the hamsters. And
nice.
Yeah, so I'll try to snap a picture of that and send it to you guys.
Oh, that'd be amazing. And one thing I do want to point out, after he introduces his brother, to get back to the comic book real quick, after he introduces his brother, he infiltrates the leaders of the Tibetan monk circle, and they produce a pamphlet, which this is the first time the fourth wall is broken in this comic. Because they produce a copy of the comic book that we're reading.
Yeah, that might be a first. Maybe.
So, well, this is the first time the fourth wall is broken that I can see. You've got, looks like GoBots, G.I. Joe, and He-Man in Jackie's room. But you've also got him being presented with a how do you say, a prophetic pamphlet?
Prophetic.
Yeah. Prophecy. Is it the Sacred Dragon Scrolls? Not exactly. It was predicted in the pamphlet featuring a psychotic rodent would make mega yen.
Yeah, we did all right with it. Clint sold a lot, so I think the timing was right on that, and you know, he was the character I think would be able to hold the story up.
Yeah, now that panel is, to me, is very reminiscent of Spaceballs, when they pull out Spaceballs the movie to track.
I love Mel Brooks stuff.
Okay, I had a feeling you were a fan of Mel Brooks' style of comedy just by reading your writing here.
Yeah, definitely.
That actually opens me up to another question I did want to ask. We'll go ahead and flip the page for the audience so they can get a good look at what is her name? Wilhelma Fisk, the king or queen pin of crime.
Yeah,
Wilhelmina. Yes. So, what were your idols and influences when you were creating comics?
Well, I was a big fan of Jack Kirby, so anything that he did for Marvel, you know, back in the 80s, I was really into. And then I liked Frank Miller, Walt Simonson, John Byrne. But there's a lot of underground influences especially in the ARBBH issues with Parsanovich, because he and I both grew up. We live in Eureka, California, which is in Humboldt County, and most people think of Humboldt County as like the pot capital of, you know, the U.S. It's known for its marijuana. And
well, I do have a rap album that would allude to such. Yes.
Yeah. So you know, there were like paraphernalia shops that were in our hometown that would have comics, but you know, they weren't the newsstand comics you get at 7-Eleven. These were underground comics,
right?
And a lot of them were like Robert Crumb or the Freak Brothers, and a guy named John Pound who actually lives in Eureka did a lot of underground work, and he kind of influenced us too. But so Parsonovich and I just kind of gravitated. I always loved the superheroes, and he really wasn't much of a superhero guy. He was more into the alternative, and you can see it like his Mobius influences in his comic book work. He really liked heavy metal magazine, which had a lot of European artists in it. And so it's a weird synthesis. He and I are totally opposite people. He looks like, he kind of looks like a homeless guy. I'm more like kind of a more conservative Republican independent guy. So the mixing of us together is why the Hamsters, I think, is so bizarre, because we just, a Chinese guy and a hippie guy doing this book about weird hamsters. It's just once in a lifetime.
So that image of Parsonovich in the first run that wasn't farcical.
What was that, buddy?
That was.
Oh.
That.
Am I coming through now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the depiction of Parsonovich in the original run, that wasn't farcical then, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, he is what he is, and he's I think I've lost touch with him, but I think he's still up here in Northern California, and he probably still cartoons, but just really small press stuff, maybe self-publishing stuff.
We got to get him on the Dick Show. I don't know if you're aware of this. Go ahead.
What'd you say on the what show?
The Dick Show. There's a gentleman by the name of Dick Masterson who does a weekly podcast that's vastly popular. And he is not necessarily politically correct, but he invites any and all to come onto his show, and I imagine that Parsonovich would be a fantastic guest on that show.
Nice.
So that's just my own personal musings. That's just me. Basically, what do you say? Crossing over, so to speak, things that I enjoy in my own head canon.
Crossing the streams.
I got you.
But anyway, we're introduced to let's see. We're introduced to the antagonist, Wilhelmina Fisk, the queen pin of crime in Bangkok. And it's introduced that she's a transvestite, and Clint hates transvestites. So now we've entered the second thing that you would not be able to get away with in 2019. But apparently all of their henchmen are drag queens, and there have been several students from this monk academy sent out to take Wilhelmina down, and none of them have been successful. So Clint is the newest recruit for this suicide mission.
There you go. And so when we were growing up, you've got your late night host now, but Letterman was a huge comedic influence for Ken and I. So we incorporated, David Letterman and Paul Schaefer as the guys introducing who the Queen Pin was. And Jay Leno makes an appearance too. We have a guy that kind of looks like Jay Leno in the book.
Yeah. Like I said, I love all the homages. I don't know if we see them in this book. I think we do. We do. But there's a very on the nose homage parody, if you will, of three very memorable characters that come up a little later.
Oh yeah.
But first, Clint has to end. First, Clint has to end at least 2 pages by shooting something. And I definitely appreciate that. And the self-awareness in the comic that by this time, though, I think the readers were getting tired of me, of seeing me shoot someone at the end of every page. Which, I must disagree. We were not quite tired yet. We could have gone at least another 2 pages.
At least. Probably 4 or 5, realistically.
Oh.
But yeah, he ends up buying some Girl Scout cookies, Thai wafers as they're called, and these two quote unquote Girl Scouts are actually Boy Scouts in drag because they work for Wilhelmina. And Clint wakes up. Go ahead.
Real quick, did you ever expect in a million years that you would be essentially prophesying what would be going on with the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts today in 2018, 2019?
Never
in the past
even
few years when you wrote this?
No, not at all. It is kind of strange, though.
Well, just not to get too political on anybody, but has anybody heard about the lawsuits coming up against the Boy Scouts of America? I mean, they're calling it the male Me Too movement. Like some couple of hundred Boy Scouts have come forward. They say it makes the Catholic Church debacle look like nothing.
Right. Yeah. Actually, my wife did mention that to me, so I wasn't sure if it was the same thing you're discussing. But yeah, a lot of abuse by the Boy Scouts people, which it's sad.
Yeah, it's very unnerving. But at the same time, like, you know, it's strange because, you know, in today's era, like in today's brand of media, you really just don't know what to expect anymore, right? Like, you don't know what to believe, you don't know what to expect, and it's just very hard to think that the same place that you went, well, I went when I was a child to put together, you know, what was it, the Pinewood Derby cars?
Oh yeah, Pinewood Derby cars. Yeah.
You know, that same place was apparently a festering ground of sexual predation. It's just it's sad to think about, man. It just really puts a whole dark twist on the whole thing. But get back to comics.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I appreciate what you're saying is very relevant, and you know, my wife, she's been really into just exposing child trafficking and all that stuff, and we just watched Mark Levin show last night where he interviewed a guy that did a movie called 8 Days about human trafficking, and it was like, you know, you just go, wow, this stuff is happening in United States, and you know, with this Epstein thing, you're just going, wow, it's just so prevalent, even to the other ends of politics and royalty, and you just go, you know, God help us. This is, you know, finally the wool's over, you know, being pulled over off of our eyes, and we can, you know, we can talk about this and hopefully do something, because I hate to see, you know, young people taken advantage of, and so.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
It's just sad that it took this long, and it took this kind of, you know, it took this kind of just disgusting action, so to speak.
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of ties into a little bit of what we're trying to do on the show, is bring a little like
levity
to these insane times we're in, and
cool.
That's part of why we enjoy these books so much, man. Is they're perfect for this time. Besides the fact that they would never be published today, just the like blatant, like almost sarcastic irreverence of some of the stuff that you've written in this it's a breath of fresh air, really, in kind of these hypersensitive times. And that's part of what I love about them so much.
Well, that's good. I mean, we all need some escape humor, and you know, you turn on the news and it's just so depressing and dark, and comics, are kind of a time when things were simpler and not quite as, I guess,
Everything politicized.
yeah, just everything's so raw and everybody can't take a joke anymore. It's just you're afraid of saying things just because you don't know who's going to say what or who's going to harass you. But unfortunately, that's just like God sorted out,
when we don't have esteemed guests on the show, we just call them names. we just call them names and keep moving along like we're in the right. So when we don't. Sorry about that. Had to pull up the link real quick. But no, just to get back into the actual book. So Clint is caught by these scouts and is thrown into what looks to be a dungeon with obvious corpses, skulls, all that good stuff, and he meets some mice compatriots, and
definitely my favorite homage in this entire book.
Right.
I think Ken Meyer, yeah, he was the brilliant one to make them the stooge mice. So I can't take credit for that. I'm pretty sure it was Ken's ball of wax on that one.
Well, we haven't confirmed it yet, but tentatively we will be trying to do an interview with Mr. Meyer on issue 2. So we will definitely pick his brain on that. But something to look forward to for the audience.
Get a confirmation on that one.
Something to tease out for the audience there.
Yeah, I really thought that the way that came together, and especially him, Clint bonding with the curly mouse, it was cute. It was just a really cute interaction, and then we just kind of yank your heart out later in the book.
The black pill, if you will.
I never thought about it, but they're both rodents talking to each other, so there's that built-in, I guess, understanding of rodents between curly
of the rodent hardship.
Like the struggle.
It's a rat help rat world out here. So let's get this back up here. But yeah, he meets the Three Stooge mice, and they're initially after him for his Mento cookies, which I can only hope are Thin Mints. I mean, I can only hope they're supposed to be Thin Mints.
They're my favorites. They're evil.
I knew I liked you.
I also like how he mentions that eating all those cookies gave him gas. That was good.
So
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
No, cookies don't give you gas. You'd have to drink milk, I think, to get the full gastronomic effect of. I don't know. I think that was Ken Meyer's joke, and I like flatulence jokes, but I think cookies don't give you gas, man.
Who doesn't enjoy flatulence jokes?
Right. The best, most base humor ever is flatulence humor. I mean, that's where we all started in 4th grade. Come on now. None of us were funny before 4th grade.
You guys remember in the Nutty Professor, the scene around the table with Eddie Murphy? That scene was just like, I saw it with my in-laws, and I could not stop laughing at that scene. You remember that scene, guys?
Absolutely. Where they were going around the table comparing flatulence.
Yeah.
I mean, mine and my dad's favorite scene from Blazing Saddles is the campfire scene. We quote it to each other all the time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Working.
so let's see here.
We're on to page 11.
Yep. We're on to page 11. He's still conversing with the three stooge mice, and they basically decide that they're just gonna let him go back in the hole and steal his cookies after he croaks. So
Yeah, it's
he,
tough.
yeah,
Prison's
so
tough, man.
he essentially starts eating the cookies to spite them, from what I understand. And
Yeah.
Curly comes out to help him, climbs up on his shoulder, and then we get our co-star of the book. Curly helps him escape the prison, offers him a spoon to continue digging a tunnel, and in that tunnel, he's just like, "Look, I don't need a spoon. I'm a hamster. We were built for digging." And you get this interlude with a gentleman that we've seen before. What's his name? Wait, is that the same guy? Yes, it is. It is the same guy. I'm trying to find his name on the page.
I think it's
Duck Fondue. Yep.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time you're going to see Mr. Fondue in this exchange here. He runs into a whole mess of problems.
Yeah, he
this
does.
this is the same
running gag.
Yeah, this is the same guy, right? I'm not imagining things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a good memory.
So
hey, I wanted to ask you, can you go back to that last page 12?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, look at this artwork on page 12, guys. This inking and penciling by Ken is just like, it is so cool, especially that second panel where Curly's on his shoulder.
Yeah,
and
climbing up to his shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, the brick. I mean, I'm a huge fan of comic book artwork, and to me, when I see black and white really popping like this, I get really excited. I just kind of why I like Frank Miller's work, because it looks good even without the color. But just the way that Ken and Mike made it, the depth on that and the shadows, and I just love looking at the artwork on this. And when it published, I was just going, these guys really did a cool job on the on the artwork on this.
It's absolutely beautiful. If we stopped and gushed over every piece of artwork that I appreciated in this book, then we'd be here all night.
Like that, because the Hamsters book, sometimes they take a little bit of a beating on Personivich's end, because he's not everybody's cup of tea. But Clint was like more of a mainstream look to me, and that's why I kind of liked that diversion from the Personovich Hamsters to kind of break out and do something that was more. I don't think I've ever told anybody this, but a lot of the Clint book is kind of modeled after the Bruce Lee Game of Death movie, which you see more of that in the second issue, because he has to basically go through level after level of harder foe. But that was kind of like a Bruce Lee movie bringing itself, influencing this particular creation.
Now, isn't there a direct reference to that in the second book?
It may be. Yeah,
there's definitely a Bruce Lee reference in the second book, and it's fantastic.
Cool.
But yeah, in the
I will have to say real quick though, part of the charm of that first run was the art, kind of the sloppiness of it. I really enjoyed. But yes, this is gorgeous. The shading and everything is just fantastic.
Yeah. Parsonovich has his charm, and he is like the cross-hatcher supreme. I mean, you can just see things where he looks like he spent hours doing things, and it's sometimes it's hard to kind of just follow characters and stuff in his artwork, because he just crams so much detail in there. Yeah, but he definitely his other work that he's done, he definitely has that Mobius. What's his name? His French name, John Giraud or John Luc. I don't know. You guys, he's like that really classic fantasy artist from France in the 70s and 80s. You guys know who Mobius is? Kind of.
No, I know who
No?
Mobius. You're talking about Mobius, the strip, right? The comic strip. It wasn't a book, was it?
That was his name as an artist was Mobius.
Oh.
Bius. So
No,
if
I'm not
you
familiar
ever,
with his work.
yeah, if you Google Mobius and you like Mobius comic art, you'll see a lot of where Personovich was very much influenced. So
Okay, we might pull that up once we get through the
detour number 3 now.
there you go.
John Gerard, yeah.
And he, well, if you ever see the heavy metal movie, the animated movie, they did an animated version of his with the pterodactyl and the woman.
I have
flying.
seen this.
Yeah, he did a weird Silver Surfer vibe, with Marvel. But yeah, there you go. Most of his stuff is just really fantastic, very highly cross-hatched stuff. So Personovich was like, that was his idol, was John Giraud growing up, and so he tried to emulate a lot of his work. A lot of his independent work outside the Hamsters has a lot more to this look.
Yeah, I can definitely see the influence though.
I'll pull this up for the viewers at home. I'll go ahead and get this up on stream here.
Yeah, so they're not totally lost.
Takes a second. We're doing it live.
Be patient, folks.
It's worth the wait.
It really is.
No, the artwork in this book, like I said, this kind of harkens back to the idea that you've got. Let's get that centered up for the people. There we go. That's what we're talking about. That's Mobius, the French artist John Giraud.
Yeah.
That's just utterly beautiful. Like, there's so much going on in it, but I mean,
I think when the Alien movie came out back in '78, he was kind of influential in some of the conceptual artwork for Alien. You can kind of see that.
Yeah, because that is breathtaking artwork right there.
Cool, man. Well, I just introduced you to another, cool old comic book artist.
Oh yeah, definitely gonna have to dig into that some more. But while Church is doing his thing here, before we move on, that was part of the thing I really liked was the combination of that weird artwork plus your writing. Like I said, I love old B movies, and that's what it felt like, but in comic book form.
Awesome.
Especially holding them in my hands, like on the newsprint and stuff like that. It's really an experience. We've shown digital images of all of this, but if you guys can, listening out there, can get your hands on any original or second, because you did 2 print runs of the original.
Yeah, number issues. 1 on the ARBBH, we had a second printing, and so you can get them on eBay. They're still, they're not much more than cover price, but I have seen people even grade them, like send them in for CGC grading and but yeah, there's
you can't
about
read them.
Tactile feel and the smell of the newsprint and
I got a collection of like 9 of them, a few in 3D and stuff off of Amazon for like $35.
Awesome,
And
man.
yeah, I have the original 5 minus number 3. My back issue bin at my local store had 1, 2, 4, and 5, and I'm like, who came in here and bought 3? But I immediately snatched those up.
That 3 had that kind of that funky claymation cover on it, right? The one that I think
Yes.
Arpanovich did out of Play-Doh. It was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. Really? He did? He sculpted those?
He sculpted it. Yeah, he was really quite talented in many,
I
things.
didn't know that. That's awesome. That makes
So-
it even cooler.
We actually did a Mr. Bill spoof when I was in high school, and he created Mr. Bill, and we did all sorts of bad things to him with chemicals.
That's fantastic. So, just looking back at this, the only reason I keep going back to this is probably one of my favorite quotes from the entire book. When Clint emerges from the tunnel on top of Mr. Duck Fondue, Mr. Duck Fondue yells, "Run for your lives! It's Mecha Godzilla!" And that starts the running gag of naming Godzilla characters and villains for the different characters in this show, just giving them the same homage name, quote unquote.
Yes, I was a child of I grew up in the early '60s, but I remember watching Godzilla movies, Saturday night creature features, and been a huge Godzilla fan for quite a while.
Which one's your favorite?
I think it's the one, the Son of Godzilla, where he has the little runt that blows the O-rings.
Godzuki.
He's just a really cute, lovable, offspring of Godzilla, and I just remember the Japanese people waving goodbye to them on Monster Island while they're starting to go into hibernation, and the snow was falling on. I think I actually cried when I was a kid, so that's a heartfelt memory of Godzilla.
As a man, that's an acceptable time to cry.
It really is. Personally, my favorite is Mothra versus Godzilla.
Okay.
That's my favorite one. But
I just like the new trend.
I can see where you're coming from.
Did you see the remake they just came out with this summer? Or?
No,
God, no.
I
had low hopes for it. I have
curious, but not curious enough.
Yeah, it was all right.
I've had no faith in Hollywood since I lost faith in the comic industry. So
yeah, I mean it doesn't hold a candle to the just kind of the heart that the old Japanese Toho ones did, but it was it has Mothra in it, so it might be worth watching just because you like Mothra.
Mothra is number 2 waifu. I said Mothra is number 2 waifu. A waifu is your anime best girl.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe when it comes to Redbox or something, I'll check it out.
Okay, yeah.
You still have Redbox where you're at?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
There's
Redbox.
like 4 of them.
That shit's all digital. Excuse me. That stuff's all digital here. The first slip. I've been
Really?
trying so hard. But yeah, that stuff's all digital out here. I think there might be 1 or 2 left in this city.
Wow. We have them in like our grocery stores. I don't really use Redbox too much, but it's a pretty good deal. They're a lot cheaper than buying the pay-per-view version.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or going to the theater.
There you go. Yeah, it's pricey.
Yeah. And I'm cheap. So
Yeah.
So
I hear ya.
after Clint makes his triumphant escape, he manages to stock up on supplies, weapons, and garb at Ming's Mercenary Market. Conveniently placed market to buy ninja garb for not just you, but your rat sidekick.
Oh yeah. Ming, he's the man.
Because comics.
I agree with everything Ayrton just said.
Of course.
Oh yeah,
How's that?
the artwork is getting. Yeah, I love the shadows and the
Mhm.
stuff that Mike and Ken did on this next spread a lot.
Right.
yeah.
One of the. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that mechanized, like the guard dog is like I totally love to see that in a live action movie.
Oh man, yeah.
I think we need to start an Indiegogo for this.
Well, we did. What was that movie that we talked about? Oh yeah, Velocipaster.
Velocipaster, yes.
If Velocipaster can get funding, then I think an ARBBH movie can.
Did you say Velocipaster?
That is correct. Yes.
Is it like a dinosaur that's a preacher, or I don't get?
That is exactly what it is.
Like a
yes.
Preacher, but kind of like werewolfy. Like he turns into a velociraptor.
Right. I've already come up with the name for the sequel. Velocipaster 2, The Velocirapture.
Oh, that's good. Does it have any stars in it?
God, no. Nobody with any self-respect would attach themselves to this movie. It's called Velocipaster.
I'll have to look that one up.
I'll send you a DM after the show. I've got the info on it. I've got the down low.
Nice.
But no, if Velocipaster can get funny, then Clint the Hamster Triumphant definitely can, and I can see it at not just the. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on board.
I mean, if Dynamite Comics is listening, I mean, this is a gold mine you're sitting on.
It really is.
I'll send Nick a link to this once it's done in streaming.
It should be up by tomorrow morning. It takes a few hours to process on YouTube servers, but by the time it's up, I'll send you the VOD link. But yeah, Clint basically breaks into this tower building with a grappling hook, and his rat sidekick says, "Oh yeah, dead on," and he's like, something like that," because they literally hook a guy inside the building.
Yeah. Poor guy.
But they get inside and they start ascending the tower, and they are attacked by a mechanical dog. And no disrespect to Clint, but the mechanical dog is just the most fantastic character in the book.
I always liked that dog, and now I'm thinking, there was an episode of Black Mirror where they had these mechanical guard dogs, and I never got a royalty check. So
you didn't. You should DMCA strike them.
You should.
But no, we get into the action sequence of the book, the quintessential action sequence, because being in the industry, you can tell me whether or not I'm right on this, but is it really true that comic books are basically written on kind of a formula?
I don't really think I ever gave it that much thought. I always wanted to write what I would enjoy, reading myself. And comics to me, if you've got great art and a fun story, and obviously we as boys want action, and I I just felt like this Clint at a solo adventure. It's just got to have a lot of action, and Mike and Ken help me deliver that vision, and so um,
Well, well,
I think,
t- to
yeah, go
be
ahead.
to be fair, I wasn't accusing you of following a formula, but would you agree that to a certain extent the big two followed a very formulaic pattern for a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
their books? You'd have a few minutes or a few pages of exposition, and then you'd get to the fighty, and then you'd have a few more pages of exposition, and then the book would end on a cliffhanger.
right. Yeah, that's very true. I bet there's even handbooks that or guidebooks that they send to their, budding writers that say this is the Marvel way, this is the DC way, and but I'm kind of a enigma. I think I was influenced by those books, but I don't really have a set formula that it has to be X pages of action and X pages of dialogue, etc.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think you can tell that, especially in the original series, where you literally go from the hamsters being national heroes for stopping a plane hijacking to blowing up the Statue of Liberty in 2 issues.
Yeah, we kind of we kind of burned the candle on both ends with the hamsters. Uh, I think them being anti-heroes is more interesting than, uh, not to say that being a hero is great, but having kind of the table switched
Right.
was fun for the story.
That and one of my favorite parts was when they're about to just get the crap beaten out of them in prison, and they shout up to you guys to ask to not have as many bad guys to fight, and then just like 60% of the bad guys just disappear because you guys don't draw them in the next panel. I laughed so hard when I read that.
That's cool. Thank you.
But the
Yeah, that was the third issue with
Yeah.
the Sonovich claymation cover. And, actually, Mike Dringenberg inked that book as well, the third Hamsters book, over a different artist. I think he and Ken are a better combination than in that book, but that book was still fun.
oh yeah. So
Yeah, that's probably my favorite besides the first one.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
just to keep going on this, obviously Clint tries his usual methods of dispelling the Tin Devil Dog, and they don't work because this is it's a mechanical, steel plated monstrosity, and none of Clint's weapons can penetrate it. And then we get a brief cut in from Duck Fondue, uh, as he's essentially trying to take down a small dog, calling him a little tree killer. And Clint's fighting off this demon monstrosity of a literal metal dog. And then the metal dog falls in the proximity of Duck Fondue, and he dubs it Mecha Dogzilla.
Yeah, I was ahead of the sci-fi movie curve. I didn't even know it.
I'm telling you, they owe you so many checks that they haven't written yet.
You should have a much bigger house at this point.
He's in real estate. We don't want to assume how big his house is. This is 2019.
True. That's a good point.
Hey, Church, if you, I know you mentioned you were familiar with Ruby Lift, but there's a lot of Zipatone in this book.
Oh, absolutely. I did not fail to notice. First off, you've got the spattering technique. That's all done by, if I'm not mistaken, that's all done by hand. Like you have to do that hand spattering by yourself. But the zipatone is in the background of the grayscale panels because this is black and white. The only way you're going to get gray and black and white is by. Is there a way I can zoom in on this? I'm pretty sure I can in at high enough resolution. Let's see here. Zoom. All right, 400%. Yeah, there you go. Just for the folks at home, so you can see just the detail on that. Yeah.
So for all you newbies, that was done with a guy having to take a sheet of plastic that had this gray stuff on it, lay it over the artwork, and then meticulously hand cut it with an X-Acto knife. It's not just, point and click with a mouse and a palette. And so it's a lot more manual labor than the way they do comics now.
Yeah, but I mean the end result, and I mean you can even see like the small detail, like on the screen I've got up now. Just the side of the dog's mouth is kind of shaded, like the side of his back has that little bit of shading in it. That all was done by hand, and I mean just the appreciation.
The lettering. Ken did. I'm sorry, not Ken, but Kurt. I don't know if he hand lettered or computer lettered back in the day. I think he might have had a font that he actually had digitized, and then he would. I think this was pre-computer, so I think Ken or Kurt Hathaway actually hand lettered everything on this one as well. So all the sound effects like Glar and the Thum and all that Buddha, where he's shooting the gun. That's all
Which I love that all the gun shooting. Buddha.
Hey, you're dropping out a little bit again, buddy.
Of course.
Like I said,
on a rotary phone.
I mean, I try to give him all the credit in the world. I even fired him before the show started, so I didn't have to do it on air. It's kind of our gimmick. I fire him once a show.
I haven't told a bad joke yet. See, I told you I'd be on my best behavior.
Yeah, but your audio isn't on its best behavior, so. Also, Clint, assumes that on level 44 he's going to have to fight some big sumos in big diapers after he fights a bunch of Yakuza. Off panel, mind you. All of the Yakuza he fights are done off panel and in a very small panel because his visor is now infrared, which it never has been before.
It's cool though, man. That's cool.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying right now, even though I can't hear it.
Man.
Is there a sound technical difficulty on my end?
No. It's he's calling in from a mobile device.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I always blame it on him. Usually it's my fault, but absolutely much better. You got back just in time for the turbo sandwich with Clint being the not worst.
Yes.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's starting to storm a little bit up here, so my signal might start to get dicey. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's all good, man. I'm used to it by now. But yeah, you can see a little bit more, and this pattern work in the background here, was that the same process? Because I've never used this particular pattern. If it was
on the second lattice, page with the
yes, the lattice.
I think Mike Drigenberg probably found that in an art store and bought as many sheets as he could, and I think he might have even overlaid like more than one sheet, because there's some parts of it where it looks like the shadowy parts.
Right.
Yeah, that's a cool zipatone texture. Bamboo-y,
But yeah, you
It's amazing that was all done by hand in an X-Acto.
And then you got the cool ninja scouts, with their nunchucks, and the way that Ken and Mike drew, the way that the twirling. It's just super creative.
Yeah. Yeah, action movements are something that I think we've lost in a lot of modern comics. I almost Freudian slipped there and called out Marvel. But I don't know if you can tell, Don, but I'm a little disenfranchised with the modern comic industry. I'm waiting on a decent change. Somebody who deserves my $4 a book.
Yeah, I hear you. I think there's there's it's not the same things we grew up on, unfortunately, but what can you do?
You can back crowdfunded books, and you can buy back issues from your local comic store, and tell Marvel and DC and Diamond that they don't deserve your money. But and it's not all modern books either. Let me take a brief aside real quick. Our show yesterday, our Sunday show, was just an overlook of Chew, Taster's Choice. It's an image book, creator-owned publisher, detective story, and a weird twist on the superhero books. I don't know if you've ever read Chew.
No, I haven't.
Basically, it revolves around a guy who's what they call a Sebopath. He's a psychic for whatever he eats. If he eats something, he can tell the background of it, or pick out the history of it, or see traumatic events that happened with that person, that kind of thing.
Kind of like iZombie?
Kind of, yeah, very much so. But it's an image book. It ran from 2019 to 2017. It was 60 issues. There were a few spin-offs. What was that?
And it just spelled Chew, like CHEW?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But a fantastic indie book. Very fun. Very ridiculous. Not a whole lot. Like, zero politicization. Like, no political overtones whatsoever. Just fun reading material. No agenda. And it even had diversity in it. Like, a lot of people would say that because this is parody, the diversity doesn't count. But 90% of Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters revolves around Asian culture.
Yeah.
This is a very diverse book. I've made the point before. Growing up, my Iron Man was Rhodey. When I first started reading Marvel, Rhodey was in the Iron Man armor. Captain Marvel was the black woman.
Yeah.
Diversity has never been a problem.
My Green Lantern was John Stewart.
Right. Diversity has never been a problem in mainstream comics. So.
Well, we got diverse things in this book for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. It's not, it's not forced. It's just, it's there. It makes sense because of the location, because of the characters. But the thing is it's not forced. It doesn't feel like you're preaching to me that I should feel a certain way about these characters. They're just the characters in the book.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's true.
That and
go ahead.
I was going to say, assuming I'm coming through good now.
You're coming through, but
the hamsters fight the.
Go ahead.
A little distorted.
Not a little bit.
Yeah, you're a little better now. Keep going.
Okay, I love that the hamsters fought the Ku Klux Klan in one issue as well. That was.
Yep. I just got. Go ahead.
Groups of villains the Ku Klux Klan. Just so the reader or the listeners know, it's Ku COO Klux CLUCKS Klan CLAN, not with the K's, but they're
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're chicken.
it's the Chicken Clan.
Yeah. Well, they were supremacists though. They were just,
Yes.
They were chicken. They were poultry supremacists. But no, and you know that's never bothered me. I've been recently rereading through the first 299 issues of Spawn, waiting on issue 300, and a lot of people don't realize this. It's really usually attributed to Blade as being the first mainstream black superhero in comics to make it to the big screen. But technically, that's Spawn. Lieutenant Colonel Al Simmons was a black man.
Yeah. Yeah. He was before Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1 year,
Right.
1997. The worst comic book movie ever produced.
I was surprised. I think Todd McFarlane said they're working on a second one, aren't they?
A reboot, yes.
Yeah, reboot. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, but the
But
problem is that the characters that they can't use because of licensing issues and the fact that he's been in lawsuits with Neil Gaiman for 20 years now.
Oh, I had no idea. Really?
Well, Neil Gaiman created Angela and Medieval Spawn, and Chapel was created by Rob Liefeld.
Right.
So a lot of the characters that were pretty much, you know, key characters in Spawn's origin are not McFarlane characters.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, so he can't use them, including Tony Twist. Tony Twist is the name taken from a hockey player that McFarlane watches. So McFarlane got sued by everybody for the last 20 years. But
wow. I've been kind of out of the what's been going on with the creators. So that's interesting.
That's why you have us.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
But
you're my wingman, my modern comics wingman.
There you go. I'll take it.
What an honor! What an honor to be bestowed upon us. It's like almost better than being knighted by the queen.
It definitely is. She can't even pick up the sword anymore, dog.
That's true. It's a styrofoam sword, like a Nerf sword. I think that's what she uses.
She just hacked somebody's arm off one day accidentally. But after the sumos basically dispatch one another, Wilhelmina is impressed with Clint's progress, and Clint winds up in a childish bedroom with. Let's be clear, there is a Wham poster. The ARBBH. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Meyer probably put that on there.
I'm gonna say the Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters were Wham fans before Deadpool, and they were breaking the wall before Deadpool. So I mean, I think Rob Liefeld owes you a check.
Maybe.
I mean, we're just keeping tally here. So far, that's at least 3 or 4 checks. I mean, we're not talking about the one that you have to cut to the Three Stooges, but you know, 3 to 1's not bad odds.
I mean, that's public domain by now. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I don't want to get too far into that. We rebroadcast the Shadow radio show during our show, so let's not go throwing stones in glass houses. But he's encountered with the scouts that sold him the Thin Mints earlier, and in true fashion, I think even before Indiana Jones did it, He pulls out his pistol and just decimates a pair of nunchucks because they're hot, but he's hotter. And here we have probably one of the most. Okay, yeah, it's no problem. Here we have probably one of the most interesting pages. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of this is like the Game of Death homage, and who doesn't love a Girl Scout, Boy Scout fight with nunchucks?
Yeah. And
I mean, really, what else could you ask for?
Absolutely.
Where's the $1.50 right here?
Yeah. Go ahead
this
and
is more than the money's worth of the $1.50.
Go ahead and send that to Don's PayPal right here. But I do like the arrow plate pointing to the blatant Miller swipe. Hashtag Ken. It's an Electra swipe with the size.
Right.
And Clint bites the nose of this person off, and we continue moving on as we get close to the end of the issue. There's a decoy, Wilhelmina, and that decoy is actually a decoy of Clint with a bomb strapped to it that Clint will narrowly escape. And funny thing is that he's only pissed off because he's missing an episode of the Monsters. But
now, please tell me there's a backstory to the Munsters thing.
Yeah, I think that's a Ken Meyer gag. So you'll probably have to ask him. I did watch the Munsters, but I wasn't I was more of a Gilligan's Island fan, and Addams Family too. I like the Addams Family, but
being a Gilligan's Island fan, did you know that Marianne is making an appearance at Bubba Fest this year?
I had no idea. Don Wells, right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Cool.
Along with Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal, Lee Majors.
Wow. Where's Bubba Fest at?
I believe Tennessee.
Yeah, are you gonna go?
I am not this year, but probably next year. It's just a little too late in the time for me to schedule it. Big family and whatnot. You got to get everything in order. But next year, I'm definitely going to put it on the radar to do for a little birthday vacation.
Yeah, that sounds good. Would you take your kids or just go by yourself?
Well, you got to take the kids.
Okay, good. Definitely.
If you can take your kids to meet Chuck Norris, you do it.
That's right.
But here's where the heartbreak comes in, and you alluded to this in the beginning of the episode when we started talking about the mouse Curly. So Wilhelmina is assaulted by Curly, and Clint tries to stop him to his defense.
Yes.
And Curly is grabbed by Wilhelmina and tossed into the helicopter blades.
Yeah.
And that sets off the best full page spread. The full page of the left hand side, or I guess screen right.
Yeah.
Of Clint saying that there's nowhere that Wilhelmina's going to go, nowhere on Earth, and preludes to the next issue, The Paw of Vengeance.
That's right.
Now, how did you possibly write uh, write the story in a way that you actually felt legitimately sad that the curly mouse got killed like that. Like I was actually like kind of like, oh, that's horrible.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
how did you manage that? That's
Right. You've been
kudos to
laughing
you.
for what, 28 pages, and then it's the heel turn. It's the heel turn of the book.
Oh man, you guys are making me. It is making me get this kind of lump in the spot in my heart because he was a, I could see Curly kind of being a, a break off character if we would have kept him around. He was really cool.
Oh yeah.
I
But
mean, you could always tell the backstory.
that's true. That's true. Um, I think Ken and I and Mike, we just wanted to just kind of pull the rug out and keep you guys in, on board for the next one. And to us, that was like the perfect um, thing to propel you to want to wait another month to get the second issue. And yeah, I've had more than one reviewer tell me that, wow, you really got me with that scene. And now that I'm looking at it again, they they had quite a camaraderie just over 20 pages of a black and white book, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those cool chemistry things that I think we weren't really expecting. And who comes up with a Three Stooges mouse? I mean,
Yeah. Well,
actually, you
It
actually
it
have
is brilliant.
it's brilliant work. Like I said, this definitely speaks to what creative team that's on the same page and working towards the same goal can accomplish. You can laugh for 28 pages and have your heart broken in 3 panels.
hmm Yeah. Thanks, guys. That was, I'm so glad that it touched you and that, just this weird offbeat tale is still making you guys laugh, 30 years later.
Well, I
Oh
mean
yeah.
that's the testament of good storytelling. Good storytelling stands the test of time. I think that people 100 years from now will be able to pick up Dark Knight Returns and understand what Frank Miller was trying to say. I think
True.
people 100 years from now will be able to pick up Jonathan Hickman's run on the Fantastic Four and be able to read his message into it because these characters and these stories are timeless. And I think that that's something you might have even inadvertently. I don't know that it was your end goal. It might have been. You might have set out to say, well, these hamsters are going to stand the test of time. And if that's what you did, then you accomplished it. But if you never intended for these hamsters to even make it past the cutting room floor, then you've accomplished something without even trying. And the fact that these stories are timeless. I mean, the fact that I can pick them up 30 years after they were published and enjoy them the way that you intended an audience to do the day you wrote them, it says something special. And that's not just, me blowing smoke up your rear. That's,
Yeah.
that's an honest take of a comic enthusiast. I mean,
Thank
I've
you.
I've read thousands of comic books in my life, and 90% of them I could throw in the trash the day I read them. And
Yeah.
this series, these characters, you can tell they were loved. And if the character is loved, then the story stands up.
Oh man, that you just took the words out of my mouth because I think that is what makes comics different. The ones that either the creators loved creating them and breathing life into them. And I can imagine, I had a lot of dialogue pretending I was these different hamsters, and just put there's a lot of myself in a lot of these characters, and I enjoy a lot of them just wrote themselves. I mean, it was definitely I think a God thing, and I'm so glad that they touched you, and that you can sense that I still love them, and that's why I want to talk about them and keep them in people's minds. And this is an awesome way with this technology to kind of have a three-way conversation and also show the world that is going to be looking this up, what it was all about back in 1986, doing this crazy book.
I know you. I know you said you had to get out of here. Do you have time for two more questions?
I'm sorry, how many questions?
Two.
Sure, sure.
All right. I figured I would ask one, and I'd give the floor to Ayrton to ask one. Me, I just wanted to ask, as far as these characters go, as far as your overall career goes, you talked about some of your other works and some of your other things. Would you say that the Hamsters are special to you because you created them and they were yours, or is there another character in your repertoire that holds that same kind of, I don't know.
I pretty much say the Hamsters are far and away my favorite creation, and I mean there are other things that I've done, but I got the most satisfaction. It was really a phenomena at the time. We were selling lots of books and being asked to appear at stores and do autograph sessions. It was almost like being a rock star. So for a young college kid, and who've been trying to break into comics, and I would get rejection letters. I would send in my stuff thinking I was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then a lot of the self-publishing I did was because of being rejected by like the big two. So when this independent boom started, in the 80s, I happened to meet these publishers at comic conventions down in the Bay Area, like in San Francisco and Eclipse. They weren't that far away from where I live in Eureka. They're only maybe 3 hours I'm sorry, 3 hours south on Highway 101. And it was just, serendipitous, I think, that they were the publisher and they were in Northern California, and I don't think they expected the book to take off like it did. In fact, they said, we'll distribute it, but we want you to pay for the printing of the book. And so it was kind of a handshake deal. And I think they wish they would have published it because there was more money.
There was more profit in publishing it than just distributing it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we sold 70,000 copies or something, which is a lot for a hardly advertised black and white book at the time by a couple of nobodies. So, yeah, the Hamsters and Clint. Maybe someday there'll be individual stories of each of them that will kind of have this same love, and I would like to write them again if Dynamite would like me to, but I feel like I like to see how other people approach the characters too. So whatever they decide to do, I'm cool with it.
Okay. Ayrton, you got anything before our esteemed guest has to depart?
Oh, I have 1,000 questions still.
Well, ask one.
First,
we can do another book, maybe a 3D book, like give the audience time to digest Clint. Maybe next quarter or later on this year. Maybe
I actually have a couple of your 3D books in my collection.
That's fun. I really like the 3D books.
But first, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and for writing these stories.
Ask your question. We'll thank him before he leaves. Ask your question.
Okay, so I guess the only real question that I have that's not going to take up a lot of time is how do I know in my collection if these are first prints or if they're any of the second prints that you guys did?
It's on the inside cover.
Yeah, I believe Ayrton on the only book that was reprinted more than once with the same covers was the issue number 1. So second, I think it says second printing, like Church said on the inside.
The first page, the first page of the book.
Okay. I just wanted to double check because I'm pretty sure I have all first printings, and that's
I'll teach him better next time, Don.
Collector.
Yeah. So overall, I think that was the only one that we did a second printing on, and we did land that. So, anyways, good questions. And I've had a grin on my face for the last almost 2 hours, and just it was a lot of fun doing this, and I'm glad that we could meet online, and maybe one of these days we'll meet up at a convention someday.
Just let us know where you're going to be, and give us some time to get there, and we'll be there. But absolutely, for me at least, and I'll let Ayrton do his goodbye real quick, but definitely we really appreciate it, and this has been one of the most fun shows that we've ever done on the channel, so thank you very much, sir.
You guys are welcome. It was my pleasure, and again, it was a lot of fun to rehash, and I can't wait to see and hope that Ken will do an issue 2 show with you. But I sent him your Twitter handle, so hopefully he'll be reaching out to you. Or
little sneak peek. He followed me during the show.
That's cool. All right. Well, hey guys. Again, thanks again for a fun evening, and I'm sure I'll see you in the Twitterverse. But again, it was a lot of fun, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night and great week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. You as well.
All right, guys. Good night.
Good night, man.
Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. This has been a long time in the making, and probably, like I said, one of the most fun shows that we've ever done.
Oh yeah.
There hasn't been a lot of activity in the chat, and I can only assume that's because everyone's been engrossed in the conversation that's been going on. But to all the new listeners and whatnot, we would be completely honored if you would subscribe to the channel, check out some of our other episodes. We do Saturday, Sunday, Monday night shows. Usually Monday and Wednesday we do some rebroadcast of some old time radio. You can always count on our boomer technical issues and audio issues, and usually it's not quite as PG, but when we have a esteemed guest, we definitely try and keep it under the radar. But
yeah, we put on the digital shirt and tie.
But I definitely appreciate everybody coming out to watch, to listen, and all of that. Just a couple of announcements, I guess, real quick. We're going to start, I think, next month, doing 4 to 5 shows a month, circulated around a singular creator. Hey, thanks, Matt Christie. Thanks, Ixel Pierce in the chat, GG, and just listening. It's nice and relaxing. Like I said, it was a lot of fun having Don on to talk about the book. This was the first for me, having a creator on to talk about their actual comic, as opposed to talking about their crowdfunded book that's yet to come out. Thanks, Bill Mouse, for that. Definitely.
Sound like I was fangirling too much while we were talking.
You actually did really well. I've got to say, I would not even fire you this episode, and that's a first.
That really is a first.
In the eternal Sargonianism, I wouldn't even fire you.
I feel like that needs to be put somewhere in the put it in the description, like Ayrton did not get fired this episode.
I'll put it in the tags. How about that?
Okay, fair enough.
But anyway, we're going to start doing a highlight on a particular creator. I think next month we're going to for September 1st, we're going to look at Ed Brubaker, crime noir. If you can hear my 2-year-old in the background, she's joined the stream. But we're going to do a little crime noir background. He's written several things, including Detective Comics runs, some criminal, Kill or Be Killed, a lot of just crime noir books that are not as fun as Chew, quote unquote, but they're still very good books. Also got Jonathan Hickman on the palette to do a book on. I think I should put a poll up as to who we should cover first. I'll do a four choice poll. Leave it up for a week and let you guys decide. Also, gonna start letting you guys do a little bit of choice on what radio show we listen to. We've definitely got some Shadow to go through. We got some Superman to go through. Got some X-1 to go through.
Unfortunately, though, those are not brought to you by Blue Coal.
You don't know. Blue Coal had his hands in a lot of pockets.
That's true, and got sued for it.
Well, you know. But in any event, we definitely appreciate everybody from coming by and having a listen. If you have any suggestions, any requests, anything like that, you can DM me on Twitter at Church Failure. My DMs are open. I check my request daily. You can DM Ayrton at Ayrton McCartney, AYRTON, just like it is on screen here. No space, no underscore, just Ayrton McCartney. His YouTube channel is linked below. He provided the intro music. He is providing the new intro music if he'll ever record it.
I'm still composing it. I'm going all out with this one. This original intro music, that was a quick 20-minute ordeal. This one I'm trying to polish it, make sure the composition is perfect, I want to not get fired for it.
You're going to get fired anyway. At least give me a reason. Come on now. But anyway, no, just for serious. He's composing our new intro music. We've got Hazen Cruz, who recorded some intro voiceovers to splice it with. We're gonna get some sound effects. It's gonna be great. But all in all, we really appreciate everybody coming out and listening tonight. Great show, and probably the first one I'm going to listen to in its entirety later on. But got anything to add before we get out of here?
I think I'm good. I'm still a little shocked that this happened, and super pleased and had a great time. So.
Well, I mean, Well, hopefully we can get Ken Meyer Jr. on, the artist for this book, and we can look over issue 2 later on and get his take on it. Do a quick recap and find out what he thought as far as the artwork and the character art went.
Oh yeah, that'll be a lot of fun as well. So look out for that, everybody. Other than that, just good night. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you again, everybody. Have a great evening. That's correct. He was fired 38 minutes before the show, Matt Christie. Thank you for bringing that up. But not during the show. So we'll go ahead and let's see what we got here. Nick Ricada is due on in just a few minutes, so seems like it's pertinent to leave you guys out with this. Go check him out, and I will see you guys on Wednesday with some more The Shadow.
Brought to you by Blue Coal.
I don't like you, Internet. Nothing personal, kids. But you're just wrong about this. So listen up.
All all of the drama. Whenever will it cease? Should be right now. Fake is innocent till proven guilty. You claim there's lots of victims, you say that you won, but we still ain't seen no proof. That ain't how this country's run. You've been trying to tell us about all the awful things he's done. I thought it was so much fun. Kissy face emoji, now his career's gone. So come on, naysayers, you just trying to spread the drama. Here, let me stand with Vic Mignogna. Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. The industry ain't nothing without Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Looking for information, they just adding to the drama. Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Still nothing but hearsay, but now his career's a goner. Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Anime ain't nothing without Vic Mignogna. If you don't have the proof, then why you wanna kick him? I don't know about you, as for me, I'm standing with him. Voice of Broly, he was doing great at Funimation, but then they fired him, all thanks to baseless allegations. You're an Opsy, what the frick is that even supposed to mean? That you can't do your research in the anime community? If you ain't got the proof, take your mouth and shut it, cause you just spreading hate that I promise no one wanted. Listen, Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. The industry ain't nothing without Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Looking for information, they just adding to the drama. Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Still nothing but hearsay, but now his career's a goner. Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Anime ain't nothing without Vic Mignogna. All of the population agrees that